Commander Hal stood at the observation deck of the exploration vessel Infinite Horizon, watching the blue and green planet grow larger on the viewing screen. Her four eyes blinked in sequence as she processed what the sensors were telling her. After 300 years of searching the outer spiral arm of the galaxy, they had finally found another world with life. Not just simple bacteria or primitive plants, but a planet absolutely overflowing with biological diversity. "Commander," her science officer N said, his voice trembling with excitement, "the readings are. They cannot be correct. The sensors must be broken." Hal turned to face him. "Explain." "This world has over 8 million distinct species of life. 8 million, Commander. The most biodiversity we have ever recorded on any planet in the Galactic Federation is 400,000. This is impossible." The commander walked slowly toward the main screen, her silver scales catching the light of the distant yellow sun. She had traveled to over 200 worlds in her career. She had seen gas giants with floating creatures the size of cities. She had walked on frozen moons where life survived beneath kilometers of ice, but she had never seen anything like this. The planet before her was small, insignificant compared to many worlds she had visited. Yet it glowed with an inner light that came from the sheer density of life, covering every corner of its surface. "Begin detailed scans," she ordered. "I want to know everything about this world before we report to the Federation Council." For the next 3 days, the crew of the Infinite Horizon documented what they found. With each passing hour, their amazement grew deeper. The planet, which its dominant species called Earth, had life in every possible environment. Creatures lived in boiling volcanic vents at the bottom of vast oceans. Organisms thrived in frozen wastelands where temperatures dropped far below what any known species could survive. Life had crawled into underground caves that had not seen sunlight in millions of years. Microscopic beings floated in the highest reaches of the atmosphere. But it was not just the quantity of life that left the crew speechless. It was the quality of it. "Commander," N said during one of their briefing sessions, "I have studied the dominant species in detail. They call themselves humans." "And what makes them significant?" Hal asked. The science officer paused, searching for the right words. "Everything, Commander. Everything about them is significant." He activated a holographic display showing the evolutionary history of humans. They emerged only 300,000 years ago. In galactic terms, they are infants, the youngest species to achieve technological civilization in recorded history. Yet in that tiny span of time, they have accomplished things that took other species millions of years to achieve. Hal leaned forward, suddenly very interested. "They began as simple hunters on a single continent," N continued. "They had no natural weapons, no claws or venomous bites, no protective shells or camouflage abilities. By all measures, they should have gone extinct within a few generations. The predators on this world are terrifying beyond imagination." The display showed images of creatures that made even the hardened Commander Hal feel uneasy. Great cats with fangs like daggers, massive bears that could tear through metal, serpents with venom that could kill in minutes, sharks that had remained unchanged for 400 million years because they were already perfect killing machines. "But humans did not go extinct," N said. "Instead, they conquered every single environment on their planet. They walked into frozen territories and built homes. They crossed burning deserts and established civilizations. They sailed across oceans that contained creatures large enough to swallow their primitive boats whole. And they did all of this without any biological advantages, only their minds and their ability to work together." Commander Hal remained silent, processing this information. "There is more," the science officer said. "Their physical capabilities are unlike anything we have documented. They can pursue prey for days without rest, running until stronger, faster animals simply collapse from exhaustion. Their bodies can heal from injuries that would be fatal to most species. They can survive without food for weeks and without water for days. They can adapt to almost any temperature range." They are generalists in a galaxy of specialists, and somehow that has made them the dominant species on their world. The commander stood and walked to the viewport. Earth hung in the darkness, beautiful and terrible. "What of their civilization?" she asked. N's next words came slowly, as if he could barely believe what he was saying. "They discovered fire and created tools. They invented language and developed agriculture. They built cities and wrote laws. They composed music and created art. They developed mathematics and science. They split the atom and sent members of their species to their moon. All of this in 300,000 years, Commander. That took 4 million years to achieve less." "That is not possible. I have checked the data 7 times. It is accurate." Commander Hal felt something she had not experienced in decades of exploration. She felt awe. "Contact the Federation Council," she ordered. "They need to see this." The message took 12 days to reach the central worlds of the Galactic Federation. When it arrived, it caused immediate chaos. Council members from 300 different species watched the recordings from Earth with expressions ranging from disbelief to fear to wonder. Emergency sessions were called. Debates raged in the grand chambers where galactic law was decided. High Counselor Ev, the ancient leader of the race who had lived for over 4,000 years, demanded silence after 3 days of arguments. "We are overlooking the most important question," he said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "This species, these humans, have done in mere thousands of years what took the rest of us millions. What will they become in another 1,000 years? In another 10,000? The council chamber fell silent. "Our civilization has existed for 16 million years, Eth continued. "We have seen species rise and fall. We have watched empires crumble and new ones take their place. But never in all that time have we encountered a species with such raw potential, such terrifying, beautiful potential." A council member from the spoke up. "Should we not be concerned? If they develop faster than any species in history, they could become a threat." Eth turned his many eyes toward the speaker. "They could, or they could become our greatest allies, or they could burn themselves out as many young species do. But that is not for us to decide. That is for them to decide. And that is what makes them worthy of wonder, not fear." The discussion continued for many more hours, but eventually a decision was reached. Earth would be placed under protection. No interference would be allowed. Humanity would be given the chance to develop on their own, to reach for the stars in their own time and their own way. Observation posts would be established at the edge of their solar system, but contact would not be made until humans were ready. News of the discovery spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Every species wanted to know about the strange world where life had exploded in impossible abundance. Every citizen wanted to hear stories of the humans who ran their prey to death and conquered their planet with nothing but intelligence and determination. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy went silent, not from fear, but from collective wonder at what had been found. On distant worlds, artists created representations of Earth, trying to capture its beauty. Scientists studied the data from the infinite horizon, searching for explanations that did not exist. Philosophers debated what humanity's existence meant for their understanding of life and potential. Religious orders incorporated the discovery into their teachings, seeing in humanity proof of cosmic significance. And on Earth, humanity continued their lives, unaware that they had become the most watched species in the galaxy. A young woman in a small village looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone was out there. A scientist in a laboratory worked on a cure for disease, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. A musician composed a symphony that made people weep with its beauty. A father taught his daughter how to ride a bicycle, cheering when she finally found her balance. Small moments, ordinary moments, but to the watchers in the darkness of space, each one was a miracle. Commander Hal returned to Earth many times over the following years. She watched from orbit as humans continued their impossible progress. They sent rovers to other planets. They built telescopes that looked deep into the cosmos. They connected their entire species through invisible waves of information. They made mistakes and corrected them. They fought and made peace. They fell and got back up again. During one of her visits, she received a message from High Counselor Ev. "What do you think of them now, Commander, now that you have watched them for so long?" Hal considered the question carefully before responding. "I think they are terrifying, High Counselor, not because of what they might become, but because of what they represent. They are proof that the universe still holds surprises. They are evidence that greatness can come from anywhere at any time. They make me question everything I thought I knew about the limits of life and potential." "And do you fear them?" The commander looked at Earth, at the lights of human cities glowing on the night side, at the satellites they had placed in orbit around their world, at the space station where humans lived among the stars for the first time. "No," she said finally, "I do not fear them. I hope for them. I hope they do not destroy themselves before they reach us. I hope they bring their strange, wonderful, terrifying energy to the galaxy. I hope they challenge us and teach us and force us to be better than we have been." That is an unusual sentiment for a commander of the exploration fleet. Hal smiled, an expression she had learned from watching humans. "I have been watching an unusual species, High Counselor. It changes your perspective." Across the galaxy, the silent wonder continued, watching, waiting, hopping. And on one small blue world, humanity kept running, kept fighting, kept reaching for something they could not yet name. Their story was just beginning, and the entire universe held its breath to see what would come next. The stars had never seemed so bright, and the future had never seemed so full of possibility. Not just for humanity, but for every species that had grown comfortable and complacent over millions of years. Earth had reminded them all of something they had forgotten. That potential was infinite, that wonder was eternal, that the greatest stories were still waiting to be told. And somewhere, in the vast darkness between stars, ancient beings who had watched galaxies form whispered to each other about the small world and its impossible inhabitants. They agreed, for the first time in eons, that the universe had finally produced something truly new. Something worthy of silence. Something worthy of wonder.